That winter morning, the sky was gray and a cold wind blew ceaselessly from the distant mountains. Inside a shabby, crooked, thatched house, a 12-year-old boy sat silently beside his mother's sickbed. Thin and pale, he had gone many nights without sleep from worry. Ever since the accident that had left her legs paralyzed, his mother had grown weaker, her breath more fragile with each passing day. The old physician quietly took her pulse, then let out a faint sigh. To preserve your mother's life, you'll need 10 gold coins to buy rare medicine. Without it, she may not survive this winter. 10 gold coins. To the boy, it was no different from a distant, unattainable treasure. His mother, upon hearing this, whispered weakly, her voice trembling, "Enough, my child. Don't worry anymore. I can endure." She knew well the house was empty of everything, and that sum of money was something her son could never earn, not even in a lifetime. The boy gripped the edge of the blanket tightly, his heart aching. Only 12 years old, yet he had to shoulder the burden of caring for his frail mother, and that impossible sum weighed unbearably on him. The physician remained silent, his eyes moist. He had witnessed countless scenes of life and death, but never one so heartrending. A mother awaiting death, a helpless little boy about to lose his last loved one in the world. He wanted to help, but he too was poor. He could only treat her for free, never afford such precious medicine. Outside, the wind howled, lashing against the swaying thatched roof. Inside, the sound of weak breathing blended with the wind like the lament of fate itself. The boy sat still for a long while, then suddenly stood up, his voice trembling. "Mother, please wait for me. I will find a way. I will bring back the money." With that, he rushed out, leaving behind the faint, desperate calls of his mother echoing behind him. He went around the village, knocking on every door, kneeling down to beg for any work in exchange for money. But when people saw his frail body and pale face, they all shook their heads. "I can barely feed myself. How could I pay you?" One man waved him off. "A scrawny kid like you? You can't even carry firewood." Another sighed. The boy stood there, his fists clenched, eyes filled with despair. He wasn't afraid of hardship, nor of exhaustion. He was only afraid of returning home to watch his mother's breath fade away. But the medicine was far too expensive. Even if he worked for a whole year, he wouldn't earn a fraction of what was needed. The sun slowly sank behind the mountains, yet he hadn't earned a single coin. Darkness fell, cold and heavy, like fate pressing down on his small shoulders. A dreadful thought began to take shape in his mind, something he had never imagined before. That night, the rain began to fall. The dripping on the leaky thatched roof sounded like an urgent summons, like laughter mocking the boy's despair. He stood before the gate of the richest landlord in the village, his body shivering from the cold, his heart pounding wildly. "I'm sorry, Mother, I have no other choice," he whispered. Then he quietly pushed open the gate and slipped inside. His body was small and thin, but quick and nimble. He crept along the wall, stepping lightly through the pouring rain. In his mind, there was only one thought: take the money, buy the medicine, save his mother. He reached the storeroom, stole exactly 10 gold coins, tucked them into his pocket, and turned to leave. But just as he stepped outside, a sharp bark split the night. The landlord's big dog had spotted the intruder and lunged forward, barking furiously, its voice echoing through the whole estate. Lights flared everywhere. Servants rushed out of the house, shouts and pounding footsteps filling the air. The boy panicked and tried to flee, but it was too late. A rough hand grabbed the back of his collar and slammed him down onto the soaked ground. "You little brat, how dare you steal from the landlord's house?" a servant roared. Blows and kicks rained down on his frail body. He curled up, arms shielding his head, but didn't utter a single cry. Fear, shame, and despair all mixed with the sound of rain and angry shouts. In that moment, he knew his fate would turn onto a different path, a path of darkness he had never wished for. Dawn had barely broken, the rain had stopped, but the biting cold still cut through the skin like blades. The courthouse yard was crowded with people, all eyes fixed curiously on a frail boy in tattered clothes, his face bruised and battered, kneeling on the ground. The district magistrate stepped out, his black robe billowing. The wooden gong resounded, each strike heavy and foreboding. A servant of the landlord rose to accuse. "Your Honor, this boy sneaked into our master's house last night and stole 10 gold coins. If not for the dog barking, we wouldn't have caught him on the spot. We beg you to punish him severely as a warning to others." The magistrate nodded, his eyes cold as steel. "Is that true?" he asked, his voice sharp as a blade. The boy bowed his head, his hands trembling. His voice was hoarse from crying and the cold. "I only wanted to save my mother. She is gravely ill. I had no other way." Whispers rose from the crowd. Some pitied him, others sneered. But the magistrate's face remained unmoved. "The law is the law. A thief must be punished. Compassion cannot override order. Without it, what justice would remain in this land?" He gestured with his hand. 2 bailiffs stepped forward, seizing the boy. The whip cracked through the air. He clenched his teeth, lips pressed tight, enduring the lashes in silence. Tears streamed down his young face, mingling with pain. Some in the crowd turned away, unable to watch, but none stepped forward to beg for mercy. When the beating ended, the magistrate ordered a criminal mark tattooed onto the boy's arm, a permanent brand to show the world he was once a thief. Then he was cast out. The boy staggered to his feet, clutching his burning arm, his eyes hollow. He could not understand why life was so cruel. All he wanted was to save his mother, and now he bore a lifelong mark of shame. As he stumbled back to the village, snowflakes began to fall. Neighbors watched, whispering, their eyes a mixture of pity and disdain. At the lane's entrance, a girl about his age rushed toward him, her face pale. "Your mother, when she heard you had been caught stealing, she could not bear to bring you more suffering, so she chose to leave this world." The boy froze, his ears rang, his legs rooted to the earth. No, it can't be," he murmured, before dashing home. But his gentle mother had already closed her eyes forever, her thin face peaceful as if in a long sleep. He knelt by the bed, clutching her cold hand, crying out in broken sobs. "Mother, I'm back. I brought the money for you. Mother, open your eyes and look at me." No reply came, only the howling wind through the cracks and the snow falling white outside the eaves. He looked up at the rotting walls, the leaking roof, the criminal tattoo on his arm. The whole world seemed to collapse around him. A 12-year-old child, now with no mother, no father, no one left to call family. On the day his mother died, the snow fell thicker than in any winter before. The world was buried in white, the wind whistling through withered bamboo groves. Wearing nothing but thin clothes, the boy silently left the thatched house, now nothing but ashes of memory. He kept walking, not knowing where to go. Each step pressed into the freezing snow, and behind him no voice called his name anymore. In his mind, memories of happier days appeared vividly. When his father was still alive, his mother still healthy, the whole family sitting by the fire. His father fried a fragrant egg, his mother smiled gently, and he, just a tiny child then, sat beside them, eating while giggling. Only a few years had passed, yet everything had vanished like a dream. If only time could turn back, he whispered, his voice carried away by the wind. But time never turned back. His father was gone. His mother was gone. On his arm, the criminal tattoo remained, like a curse carved into his fate. He walked until his legs gave way. The snow fell thicker, covering even the narrow paths. At last, he sank down on the porch of a landlord's house, buried his head in his arms, and wept bitterly. Suddenly, a small cat wandered up. It looked at him for a moment, then, without the slightest fear, leapt into his lap and curled up, falling asleep. The boy was startled. He thought no one needed him anymore, that no one cared. Yet here was this little cat, resting peacefully in his thin arms, as if trying to warm a heart that had been shattered. That night, snow kept falling white and heavy. From afar, an old monk in a brown robe walked toward him. The monk stopped, silently watching the boy holding the cat, tears streaming endlessly. Then he stepped closer and asked in a gentle, deep voice, "Why are you crying?" The boy looked up, his eyes red. He told the monk everything, how his father had died when he was young, how his mother had just passed away, how he bore the mark of a thief with no place left to call home. The monk was silent for a long while before speaking softly. "If you wish, come with me. You can become a monk. Leave all the suffering behind." The boy shook his head, raising his thin arm with the tattooed mark. I am a bad person. How could I ever become a monk? Everyone in the village knows. Who would accept me?" The monk smiled kindly, his gaze resting on the small cat sleeping soundly in the boy's lap. One who is trusted and loved by animals cannot truly be a bad person. Those words made the boy break down in sobs. The snow was still falling thick, but in that moment, warmth returned to his heart. The monk's words were like a small lantern, lighting up the deep darkness that had covered his 12 years of life. The boy stood up, bowed deeply before the monk, and then quietly followed him. Behind him, he left the poor thatched house, the pain and the shadows of the past, beginning a new journey, a journey to seek another meaning for his life. He knew then that when one door closes, another will open, and this time he would seize it.